The story is there's an exploratory mission on Mars, collecting stuff and bits and dust and doing things and doing exploratory stuff. And suddenly, in the middle of it all, there is what do we call it? A scientifically anomalous but narratively necessary storm.
That'll do.
That's very good. Because the storm is coming, it's going to knock the spaceship over. Everyone has to get onto the spaceship and abandon Mars. But due to flying debris and all manner of stuff, Matt Damon's character, Mark Watney, who is the central, who is the Martian of the title. Obviously, he's not a Martian. He's
Watney's Red Planet.
Oh. I wish I'd thought of that. Did you?
Halfway through the second... I've seen it twice now, so halfway through the second time I thought, oh, I'll do that.
Oh, that's so annoying that you thought that.
It's only appropriate for listeners of a certain age, though. Go, what? What's Watney's Red Planet?
OK. I'm now going to be cross for the whole of the rest of the show.
Put it in for your newspaper.
Watney's Red Planet.
Oh. Anyway, so...
Oh, OK, fine. So they think that he is dead. So they take off because they have to. They've got no other choice. Jessica Chastain is the captain. They've got no other choice other than to take off, believing him to be dead. They take off. Turns out, of course, he's not dead. They start heading back. Meanwhile, he realises that he is there for the long haul because it being Mars, any rescue mission is like years away. We're talking like hundreds of days, or sols as they have in Mars, the solar days. And so he starts, firstly, he attempts to let people know that actually he is still there and he isn't dead. But more importantly, he realises that he has a very limited number of rations, and the time that he is there is going to be longer than the ration that he has. So he starts making a video diary of how he is going to, in his own words, not die. Here's a clip.
Right. Let's do the math. Our service mission here was supposed to last 31 souls. For redundancy, they sent 68 souls worth of food. That's for 6 people. So for just me, that's going to last 300 souls, which I figure I can stretch to 400 if I ration. So I got to figure out a way to grow 3 years worth of food here on a planet where nothing grows. Luckily, I'm a botanist. Mars will come to fear my botany powers.
So that's the setup. You're laughing already. Okay, so
I think it's great. I think it's great. You can hear the whimsy.
You can. So basically, what he has to do is he has to not die for long enough for, firstly, to establish some form of contact with mission control with Earth. Secondly, what are you doing?
I'm putting on my Martian helmet.
I see. OK, so for those listening and wondering why Simon suddenly sounds like he's in a goldfish bowl, you have just put on...
This is actually Matt Damon's helmet.
No, it's not.
It is.
No,
signed by Matt Damon.
It says it's actually signed by Ridley Scott. It's not signed by Matt Damon. That's why it says Ridley Scott on it.
It's officially authenticated as Matt Damon's helmet.
Are you actually wearing Matt Damon's helmet?
The helmet was designed by Janty Yates.
You've just broken it.
Janty Yates, who's worked with Ridley Scott on Exodus, Gods of Kings, Prometheus, Robin Hood, American Gangster, Kingdom of Heaven and Gladiator, and he made this helmet. This is Matt's helmet. I am Matt Damon. When Matt Damon steps out the shower, that's just what I look like. I just want to tell you that. Okay.
What do you think?
What I think is that everyone listening on the radio and not actually looking at you with your head in a goldfish bowl, which has been signed by Ridley Scott, is going to wonder why this bit of radio...
It's a live stream special.
OK, fine.
And a Snapchat special.
OK.
Sorry, have I put you off?
No, that's absolutely fine. I just love the idea of conducting the rest of this review whilst you've got your head in a large plastic casing with Ridley Scott's name written on it.
Frank Sidebottom all over again.
It is.
Oh, I'm the Martian. Oh, yes, I am. I really am.
If you keep the front of it off, then it's OK. Then I can actually look ridiculous.
I know. I'm going to carry on, though.
OK, so basically what he then has to do is he has to stay alive whilst, firstly, making contact with Earth, secondly, waiting for them to figure out whether or not it's possible to get something, up to Mars to keep him alive long enough for them to send another mission, which is coming in sometime. And all the time what he has to do is to fight the elements. And the first thing he does is he realises that he has to grow, as he said in that thing, he has to grow 3 years' worth of supplies. He finds a bag of potatoes, but there is apparently nothing grows on Mars, but he discovers that actually what they have is the waste from the toilet. And of course that, like anything else, is some form of fertilizer. So the first thing he ends up doing basically is seeing whether it's possible to grow potatoes in poo. Meanwhile, you've
been waiting for that line for a while.
But it's true. And meanwhile, the only thing he has to keep him entertained is old reruns of Happy Days and Jessica Chastain's collection of archaic dance floor fillers, which he says he hates. So there's a kind of Guardians of the Galaxy thing going on, in as much as it's got these sort of retro pop stylings that are completely out of sync with the futuristic nature of the tale. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. So much so, in fact, that I haven't said this for a long time, I could have sat down and watched the whole thing again from the beginning immediately afterwards. And the reason is this. Firstly, it's lovely to have a Ridley Scott movie in which is this well written. The fact of the matter is, Ridley Scott is a great visualist and a great world builder, but he has, if you look at the screenplay for Prometheus, the screenplay for The Council, I mean, The Council, which is extraordinary, it should be so much better than it is, and yet it's terrible. You look at Exodus of the Gods and Kings. These are films which are stodgy and ponderous, and, we played a clip from The Council, all that stuff about the temperature of trust and this, that, and the other. How wonderful to have a script which, and I think absolutely, Drew Goddard, who's the screenwriter, and Andy Weir's book that it's based on, and I haven't read Andy Weir's book, but I know that your youngest said that it's the best book ever. Well, what Drew Goddard has done is managed to take whatever is brilliant in that book and put it on the screen in a way which is genuinely snappy and funny, and it was so terrific, because if you look back over Ridley Scott's career, all the great works are all built on screenplays. You look at Callie Curry's screenplay for Thelma and Louise. You look at the Hampton Fancher, David Webb Peoples stuff for Blade Runner. All of that stuff is built on brilliant screenwriting. There's never any question about whether Ridley Scott is a great visual stylist. Of course he is. Actually, even the question about whether Ridley Scott is an actor's director has long since been laid to rest. I know when he was making Blade Runner, people said, he's more interested in the technical details than he is. But that hasn't been true for ages. That hasn't been true since Thelma and Louise. He can get great stuff out of it, but if the script isn't good, the films will end up not being. And sometimes I think that the thing with him is that he sees so much of what he does is visual that he hasn't actually got the best eye or the best ear for a really good screenplay. So in this case, it's the best written thing he's done in ages, and that he's worked with in ages from Drew Goddard's script. And as a result of it, it's the best film because it's funny, because it's actually it leaps off the screen in a sort of joyous, jolly way. It doesn't have all that Prometheus ear-scraping dialogue about the non-existence of God and the role of extraterrestrial engineers or whatever they were called. It doesn't have all that kind of ponderous, don't say what was wearing that helmet because it puts me off because you just look like a complete plank.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It doesn't have that. What it has is a character that you care about. And I have to say that Matt Damon does it rather well. He is both charming and funny. I mean, there's an awful lot of, I'm stuck here on Earth. Luckily, I'm the best botanist. I'm the best botanist on the whole planet. All that stuff works really well. And what you're interested in is, firstly, how is he going to do it? How is he going to not die? How is he going to stay alive? How is he going to grow the potatoes? How is he going to not run out of... How is he going to make the journey that he has to make to the other place where apparently the supplies are going to be sent to? And the pop science in it, the nice thing about the pop science in it is it's all just credible enough to be believable. I mean, I know it's sort of well researched and everything, but there's obviously, when you're turning this stuff into movies, so there's a lot of stuff, but you have to take out the technical stuff. You have to make it sound just interesting enough to be credible to an audience, but not too techie or so that people start getting fussed about it. And you and I have talked about the fact that apparently the storm at the beginning, okay, well fine, that's a liberty, but he needed something to get them off the planet, and a storm was going to do it.
And as we mentioned in the interview with Ridley last week, that was Andy Weir. That's the guy who wrote the book. And
exactly. And it doesn't matter because that's fine. That's a different. But for the rest of it, you are thinking, oh, how is he going to make water? Oh, then there's a sort of science experiment element to it. And I think younger viewers going to see it will come away with a renewed interest in science and biology and, botany and astronomy. And of course, actually, nobody could have built into all this the fact that there's been all these news stories recently about real Mars. I mean, you can just see the PR people for the Martian going, I'm sorry, that is just absolutely brilliant. And people have started discovering stuff about Mars. So that all works very well. Meanwhile, the other side of the story, which is populated by extremely good actors, so Chiwetel Ejiofor, Jessica Chastain, who actually does a really good line in She's the Captain. She has to be... Sorry, you just held up because you're having your photograph taken and you put me off.
I do apologise.
She's the captain and she feels terribly guilty and responsible for leaving Matt Damon behind, leaving Mark Watney's Red Planet behind. But on the other hand, she's also very, very practical and she has to make decisions about what the rest of the crew do. So her, Michael Pena, Jeff Daniels, Kristen Wiig, I mean, really good actors in what are essentially second-string roles. So I like all of them. I know some of it feels a little bit like, okay, well, we've got to make this work. How are we going to do it? But actually what the film is about is defeating the universe with string and glue. I mean, there's a lovely sort of DIY feel to it, which I like. I also like the fact that visually to look at. It's it's those ochre sands, it's the white interiors, it's the great black of space, and the third act is basically a sort of riff on Alfonso Cuarón's Gravity. So it starts off sort of being silent running, and it starts off being rather Apollo 13. We've blown something up. How are we going to fix it? Oh, well, the guys down on Earth will do it, and then they'll tell us how to do it. There's a little bit of Duncan Jones' Moon in there. The idea that there's somebody on a planet who is talking to himself. There's a weird echo of Interstellar, which is, hey, Matt Damon's on a planet miles away from Jessica Chastain. It's the same. Yep. And all that stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's referencing other films. It actually adds to the charm of it. And I think the charm is because it's really well written. It's got a charming central performance. The secondary performances are very, very solid. And the third act, which is it's a sort of, in much the same way as Gravity is, it's a silly third act, but it's really, really excitingly silly. And I enjoyed it enormously. I thought it was really good fun.